Welcome back to my channel once again, everyone. This is the third video in a 3-part series on the estuary boat refurbishment. In this video we apply the final coats of paint and do the tedious part of fitting out the boat. You can read my complete write-up on this procedure in issue 264 of Digital Magazine, Australian Boating Magazine. If you haven't seen the first 2 videos in this 3-part series, I suggest you grab a cup of tea, sit down and watch them first. Otherwise, get ready for a whole lot of sanding, filling, and a lot of installing. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Now that the boat was on the trailer, we could finally test fit the outboard that we'd had sitting in the garage for over 2 weeks already. We just wanted to do a quick fit on the transom and see if the motor even started. After hooking up the fuel line to the outboard, Dennis gave me the honours of kicking the motor over. Second turn and she started. I was a very happy girl, but the outboard needed to go back on the engine stand so we could continue working on the hull. There was a lot of prep work to be done on the newly fabricated gunnels, so there was so much more filling and sanding to do. Just when I thought I was done with the itchy part of this process, there was more sanding to be done. Now that the deck was all fiberglassed into position and the hatch lids were complete, we could give the raw fiberglass a sealing coat of flow coat. We had grey flow coat left over from our last refurbishment, so we used what we had left over from that. Now that the gunnels, the bowsprit, the console and the transom area had a pretty smooth finish, we could apply the first coat of high build primer. We ended up rolling and brushing this first coat on. This first coat just allows us to see any imperfections in the paint, so that we can go ahead and bog the rest of the dips and pinholes. I like the idea of having some kind of storage racks for my fishing rods under the deck area, like the American bass boats have. So Dennis had to fabricate some kind of system that was going to work in this boat. He started by fabricating a rack for the rod butts to sit into. He figured we could fit 7 light to medium rods without any of the reels touching each other in the configuration that he made up. To support the rod tips, Dennis then took 32mm PVC pipe and added a flange at one end of it. He then drilled holes in the forward compartment wall where the PVC pipes would slip into. The pipes were then cut to the appropriate length and sikaflexed into position. We were going to do the same in the starboard rod locker, but we decided to leave this locker just purely for storage. For the time being, we decided to use stainless steel pop rivets to pop rivet all the hinges into place. We simply couldn't afford the multitude of stainless steel bolts to secure these into position, so pop rivets it was for now. Getting a nice finish on the surface takes a lot of effort, and if we didn't have a deadline to get the boat finished in, I would have spent a lot more time getting these surfaces perfect. Now that we had a few coats of high build primer on, it was much easier to see all the imperfections. Here I'm using blade putty to fill in any of the dips and pinholes that the high build primer won't fill. Once the bulk of this is sanded back, you can see exactly what it's filled. Look, I'm no panel beater, but I'm doing the best I can to get a good finish for the final coat. Before we applied any more coats of high build primer, we wanted to cut out any necessary holes into the console. Positioning the instruments on the dash was a personal choice. Cutting through the dash was another story. Because the console had several coats of fiberglass over the top of it, it made it extremely hard to cut anything into it.
Don't touch it, it's hot! It's a hot pancake.
Throughout this build, we've found cutting through the fiberglass absolutely bluntens anything that you're using, and this becomes very costly on the tools, so you pretty much just have to hack it and keep going.
You look good sitting there, honey. You can drive me around.
Bang, bang,
No,
bang.
it's not gonna bang, it's gonna like a blade!
I can't tell you how many jigsaw blades I went through, but you can see I'm struggling right now. So be prepared to go to the hardware store and pick up blades in bulk. It was time to get some more flow coat on any other surfaces that hadn't been sealed yet. This was going to protect these areas from moisture down the track. Now that all the prepped areas had had a good sand back, Dennis could apply a sprayed coat of high build primer. This would have a really nice even finish. You can see that we've masked up the bottom part of the hull so it doesn't get any overspray on it. Now that that high build primer was drying, Dennis could finish off the rod rack storage area. You can see in this clip that we've applied the last little bits of blade putty to fill up any other holes. We've also cut holes for the switch panel and any of the electrical cables to go through. Dennis is now spraying a tinted coat of grey high build primer onto the hull. Once the grey is sanded back, it's much easier to see any dips that are left behind. If I had the choice, I'd do one more coat of filling and sanding to get the gunnels looking close to perfect, but because time was running out, I had to live with these few little imperfections. That afternoon, after Dennis arrived home from work and I'd finished all the sanding, it was time for the final coat of hardtop white. Dennis applied the paint the same way he did before. So he did one coat over the whole hull just to make everything a little bit sticky, and then he went over everything with a second coat so that it would gloss up. The fit out of the boat is actually a very time consuming and tedious process. I questioned myself if you guys wanted to actually see this part of the refurb, and I decided to put it in anyway. Dennis did a lot of this part of the installation by himself, while I was on the computer writing and video editing Estuary Boat Refurb Part 1. Although the trailer was already registered, it still needed a lot of cleaning up so it looked good and also functioned right. This was not the original trailer for this boat, so we had to adjust the rollers so that the boat would sit on it nicely. While we were at it, we installed new wheel arches, new trailer lights, and also gave it a good paint job.
How come you're driving? vibrations.
It was time for the first official water test to weed out any bugs that needed fixing. By the end of the day, we realised we needed a little more weight in the nose, so we ended up pushing the fuel tank into the forward position. This would actually help some of the porpoising problem. We have now installed trim tabs onto the boat, which helps tuck the nose in even more. It really pains me to drill this many holes into the brand new transom that we've just fixed up. But this is actually a special kind of trim tab. It has two positions. It has the normal trim position and also a trolling position. So you can actually push the trim tab down so that it slows you down when you're trolling at low speeds. Because our 2006 model Mercury doesn't have the option to lower the revs to troll at low speeds. We started by covering the gunnels and the console in a plastic wrap to protect them from the glue that we're about to lay down. First we cut the carpet to a roundabout size before we started applying the glue. A layer of glue is applied to the deck and then also to the back of the carpet too. These two surfaces are left to dry a little and tack off so that when they come together they stick together nicely. With a bit of tapping and a bit of shuffling over the surface, we had the carpet stuck down nicely. Here you can see Dennis cutting out one of the hatch lids, while I used the methylated spirits to get rid of any excess glue from the edges. The same process was applied to the front casting deck and eventually the subfloor as well.
It's not too bad. I just need a bit more waterproof if we don't cut it, eh?
Dennis often has to lay carpet at his home renovation jobs, so installing the marine carpet into the boat wasn't such a problem for him. We still haven't installed the lockable hatch handles yet, as we haven't found any that we liked. I wanted to show you around the finished boat. On the port side we have the rod locker and also some vertical rod holders. In the centre compartment we have the fuel tank, which we are yet to secure into the forward position. On the starboard side we have another storage compartment. Here you can see how much storage there is for tackle bags and other things. Notice the PVC pipe that runs into the front compartment. This holds important electrical wiring that goes to the console and the transom area. The starboard rear storage box holds the fuel separation filter, the oscillation switch and a few other important things. Rear centre compartment holds the start battery and the bilge pump. The port storage box was originally going to be a live tank, but we now realise that we don't need any extra weight in the back. The front casting deck has all the wiring set up for a secondary Lowrance HGS Carbon 9-inch sounder, which is currently in our offshore rig. We just share the sounder between the two boats. If you haven't noticed already, we have a Mercury 4-stroke 90 horsepower on the back. I want to say a massive thank you to Lowrance for being one of my generous sponsors. So that's a quick rundown on the fit out of the boat. We still have a few minor things to install, like the locker latches and a plexiglass windscreen, but that's pretty much it. Make sure you check out my other YouTube clip on how we installed this beautiful fish wreck vinyl wrap. It was actually a little bit of a challenge, but we got there in the end. So I hope you enjoyed this 3-part series on how we refurbished this little estuary boat. I've had a lot of people ask me whether it was worth actually doing up this little boat, or should we have just bought brand new in the first place. If we had upwards of 30 grand to go and spend on a boat, we probably would have. But refurbishing this boat has given me a sense of achievement, and I'm very proud of what we've done. So I hope this has been an inspiring series for you guys to take on your own project too. Don't forget you can find my write-up to this episode in issue 264 of Digital Magazine Australian Boating Mags. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment in the comment section below, and thanks for watching. I really appreciate your support. See you later, guys!